Thanks, Dr. Usha. Usha to Usha, thank you so much for the kind introduction. I'll go straight to the topic. After all those elegant talks, I think mine is the simplest one to address. So let me go through it very quickly. But these are very important areas, and I think most of us will come across these conditions quite often. Pediatric eyelid anomalies are most challenging. It may be present at birth as a result of the abnormal embryogenesis, or it may occur at later stages as the child matures. So it could fall under the entity of developmental. So what are the anomalies that we commonly come across? Entropion, ectropion, ptosis, lid retraction, epicanthal folds, blepharophimosis, colobomas, cryptophthalmus, and canthal dystopias. I have not included some of the lash anomalies, specifically because of the lack of pine. Now, if you look at the ptosis, you will have simple, complicated blepharophimosis, synkinetic ptosis in the form of Marcus-Gunn syndrome and misdirected third nerve. The features being specifically absent or poorly developed eyelid crease, decreased levator function, or sometimes absent levator function, eyelid lag on down gaze. This is very typical of the congenital ptosis entities. So here you see a simple ptosis wherein it's unilateral and corrected by a simple procedure, frontalis sling, because of the poor levator action. You have a similar scenario, but it's a bilateral entity, again corrected by a simple procedure, frontalis sling, because of the poor levator action. A word of caution here, you will have to elicit whether there is any evidence of visual impact or resulting in amblyopia before you correct these patients. Blepharophimosis involves ptosis, epicanthus inversus, and telecanthus. The ptosis, you will have a horizontal and vertical shortening of the lid. So you will have to correct the vertical shortening by doing a ptosis correction, which is usually frontalis sling procedure. The horizontal shortening, you need to do a lateral canthoplasty, and the epicanthus inversus is often corrected using the viviplasty. And the telecanthus is corrected by doing a transnasal wiring. Marcus-Gunn jaw winking phenomenon is usually unilateral, can also present bilaterally. And the management is generally based on the amount of ptosis, which is usually mild to moderate, and also the amount of lid excursions on opening the jaw or the sideways movement of the jaw. So you would end up doing a disinsertion of the levator palpebrae superioris upon neurosis, resection, and then additionally you augment it with the frontalis sling in order to correct the ptosis. Now coming to the third nerve palsy, which we occasionally see in this patient, you have a squint as well as a ptosis. So you initially correct the horizontal squint and then do either a levator correction, or you can resection, or you can end up doing a frontalis sling. But you should first correct the squint before you go in for a ptosis correction. The horizontal squint can be corrected alongside. Vertical squint can precede the ptosis correction. Now, congenital ectropion often is because of the vertical insufficiency of the anterior lamellae, and in mild cases you can resort to patching or a temporary tarsorrhaphy. In this case, actually, I have tried and just done a tarsorrhaphy, and eventually it resolves. Sometimes you may have to resect an excess too, and in severe cases you may have to resort to skin grafts. Like in this particular scenario, you have to resort to doing a skin graft. Entropions, very rare, but we do see occasionally, and then this can be corrected by a Weiss procedure. In this particular scenario, I have corrected with a Weiss procedure. Uriblephron is a horizontal widening, widening of the palpebral fissure. There is inferior displacement of the lateral canthal tendon, and there is often an antimongoloid slant. It is usually managed by doing a lateral canthal repositioning or a lateral tarsal strip, depending upon the amount of the slippage of the lateral canthal area. The epicanthus is often because of the medial canthal fold, because of the immature midfacial bones. There is often a pseudo-esotropia. If it is a tarsalis, it's usually the upper lid which is involved. Inversus involves the lower lid, and palpebralis involves both upper and lower lid. Management could just be an observation. Sometimes it resolves with facial maturity, or you can do a Z-plasty or a viviplasty. Epiblephron is usually medial. There is a fold of skin accentuated on down gaze. And it's often treated by doing a simple HOTS procedure where you do a skin muscle, orbicularis muscle excision. Here you see a right eye has a medial facial cleft and left eye has an epiplefron which is being corrected. Colobomas are usually isolated. It could be unilateral. Usually we see it in the upper lid. We can also see it in the lower lid. And the management is often earlier on, you start with lubrication, especially when it's in the upper lid, because you need to avoid the corneal exposure. You can either do a direct repair or you can do a lid sharing procedure. The associated syndromes are often Fraser's syndrome. It's very, very rare, but we do see occasionally Goldenhar syndrome, which is very common, Tricher-Colin syndrome. And Goldenhar's is often associated with a limbal dermoid, preauricular skin tags, as in this particular case, ptosis, nasolacrimal duct obstruction, coloboma of the middle third of the upper lid, usually. The systemic findings are vertebral anomalies, cardiac and pulmonary anomalies. Fraser syndrome, rare, but we do see it is an autosomal recessive condition associated with cryptophthalmos. We have seen bilateral cases as well, is often associated with mental retardation. There is a defect of the auricle. There is a genital anomaly. Cleft lip or palate is associated. There is laryngeal stenosis or atresia and cardiac defects. These patients do not survive very long. Microphthalmos, as you see in this particular case, it seems like a complete ptosis, but after a prosthesis, this is how the child looks. So to conclude, it's a very challenging scenario. It's often vision threatening, especially when conditions like ptosis, it can lead on to amblyopia or astigmatism resulting in amblyopia. It is associated with multiple anomalies requiring multiple surgeries or multiple stages of surgeries. And amblyopia is a condition which we ought to keep in mind. It could result as a result of the condition or as a result of the treatment. And this should be taken care of as well.